It's really interesting because the way I see with the elders that we work with, and we primarily do that, Synergy HomeCare, we do non-medical home care. So what we do is we help people age in place, and we provide opportunity by providing caregivers for them to keep them in their home. And majority of people want to stay in their home, you know, as they're aging and so forth. So what we run into, and we actually do an inspection when we go into the home. So, you know, we look at what, you know, all sorts of things, and we'll kind of cover some of that as we go along. But it's great that, you know, when we have an opportunity to work with companies who understand that and can provide the resources or the support and the ideas and the ability to meet the needs of the seniors that we're working with. So minimizing risk, enhancing independence with home modifications. So we don't do any of the modifications, but we recommend a lot of stuff. So it's good to, we're non-medical, so we don't do anything with, you know, people's limitations and so forth. We help people exercise, follow, you know, regimens of really ADLs, activities of daily living. So, come on in and have a seat. There's no place like home. Okay. So, it's, you know, setting things up so that people can, you know, understand the needs, physical changes, home modifications, you know, proactive planning. It's never too soon to modify your home so that you can accommodate, because it just makes sense. Some of the designs and some, you know, when we see homes all the time and they haven't been updated in 30 years, you know, and then, you know, having somebody who has knee problems, hip problems, mobility issues, trying to step over a bathtub to get into a shower and so forth, or to try to get a wheelchair through a 27-inch door is a big problem. So, you know, we can suggest to people, and we have to kind of work around those kind of situations. But, you know, helping them plan, you know, understanding the financial considerations of those things as well. So, as we get into that, it's interesting because there was a survey done by the American Clarity, you know, aging in place in America, by Clarity rather, and you know, these, when asked what people fear most is, you know, loss of independence. We deal with that a lot. So if people can stay in their homes and we can do it safely, right, and keep them comfortable in there, then, you know, all the better. But fear losing independence, moving out of a home into a nursing home, people do not necessarily want to do that. I actually think the number, this 89% of seniors who want to age in place is actually higher. I would say it's more like 98 out of 100. Of people who want to stay in their homes. Giving up driving, people, that is huge. We deal with that all the time. You know, and people that are in their 90s, everybody they know is passed. Yeah. You know, so that becomes a big issue. But, you know, interestingly enough, seniors are not really concerned about death. You know, I always ask everybody when I go into their home, and when they're at that stage, they're on hospice and so forth, do you know where you're going? Right? I think that's an important thing to know, you know, about what they think about their faith. Okay, and somebody's got to broach that subject. You don't know if somebody has, or, you know, it can be a little invasive sometimes, but, you know, I think it's worth mentioning.
I bet you get some pretty funny answers to that question.
Why are you asking me that? You know, and, you know, but usually you get a response that gives you an indication of whether maybe they need to talk to somebody. And then, you know, steer them to the appropriate support, right? Yeah. Based on what we find out about them and so forth. We don't, you know, want to impose any beliefs on them, but, you know, I think it's important that people kind of believe in something, right? Okay, home modifications aren't just for, well, we work with a lot of younger people too, modifying the environment, whether it's just flooring, you know, getting rid of the carpeting, or, you know, putting in tile, or, you know, what other items they would need in order to make it safe, you know, if they're in a wheelchair, or if they're using a walker and things of this nature. Those become a big factor. The obstacles that you and I don't think about, they deal with, and they're fall risks.
Right.
You know, as we get older, a lot of things change. Physical changes, you know, vision, hearing, mobility, everything changes. You know, it becomes more restricted, more confined, and you know, we need more help in making things easier to utilize to take care of ourselves. I had a client that I went and talked to in Fountain Hills. Because of their situation, the husband's taking care of her. They're both in their 80s. He can't bathe her. And so it's been a month since she's had a shower. And so I go up and talk to him. I'm saying, and they have the resources. So I'm saying, tear this out, build a walk-in shower or something where she can get a shower seat and roll it in there and, have the safety, the warmth, and the comfort of being maintained, right? But that's an obstacle in itself. Okay, we think about, and I think about what I can do, what I do in my home and how I look at the future of how we construct it in dealing with the clients that we deal with. So, definitely my mother-in-law suite, we're looking at building in a shower and so forth, and a walk-in shower to that area. So those are kind of things that are considering. So it affects vision, speech, smell, all aspects of their life, and their cognitive ability can be interrupted by the physical experience. I'm running into a lot of clients that are in their 90s. Cognitive ability is fantastic, but they're physically failing. So they want to stay at home. So how do we, work on that? Okay, vision, big thing, and a lot of this is, if they're not, suffering from macular degeneration or, some other kind of a vision problem, just their sight's limited. I remember doing a test where they took wax paper and put it in lenses and had people try to look through it. So that was kind of indicative of how eyesight deteriorates gradually and how severe that is and how difficult it is for people to see. Thus, when we're talking about things like that, colors and the way you set up, whether it's colored placemats on a table or a door or a light switch that has brighter colors on it, things of this nature that are more supportive of the deteriorating ability. Cataracts, clouded lenses, and so forth, ability to see colors change age, as lenses, yellows, red, yellow, and orange are easier to see than blue and green. So we avoid those things for items. And it's, I kind of was thinking about that, and I was thinking it's kind of like OSHA regulations. You put yellow tape on the floor, on the steps, and so forth, and or you get rid of the steps altogether. I've seen how many people. You see sunken living rooms, and I see these people, and they're going through their house, and they go from their bedroom to the kitchen, and their bedroom to the kitchen, and that's it, because they can't get down into their living room anymore because it's no longer usable space because they can't access it. And then what happens? Then we end up going and visit them at a skilled nursing facility because they tried to go down the steps and they fell. And that happens. Went and visited a client, we're supposed to start working with them Wednesday, fell yesterday. Broken hip. So those are things that are very real in what we're talking about. So, it's when you're visiting with folks, or we are anyway. Another thing, lighting in the room. You don't think about this. A lot of the clients don't. They're thinking they're thrifty, right? At that age, they don't want the lights on. They don't want to pay the electric bill, but yet they can't see what they're. And you go in there, and I can't make notes because it's dark in the house. So nights, keeping night lights or lights, baseboard lights, ability for them to see where they're going, and fall prevention. We talk to them a lot about fall prevention. So as we look at where their living space is and where they're actually living, what can we do to help them be safer? Increase their lighting, contrasting colors.
Kelly, do you actually do those things for them, or do you recommend somebody, like for example, somebody?
No, you know what? We provide the care,
right.
So we provide the caregivers.
Right.
We don't do any modifications.
Okay.
But when I go through their house, I go room by room, and I'm saying, okay, you know what? There's not enough space here for you to get a wheelchair between this wall and this bench.
And pick up the stupid throw rugs that are
The
all over.
throw rugs that are all over the place that, and you test them out and they, there's no backing on them.
They drag their feet. and-
Yeah, well, they shuffle, right?
They
When
shuffle.
you're shuffling and you're dragging your toes, and the next thing you know, you're out of balance. And then you're falling against something, and when we talk about that, it's just like with the bathroom, 60% of falls occur either toileting or showering.
60%?
60%. So, I mean, that's significant. So the ergonomics of having an appropriate bathroom shower facility is vital. It's threatening. It is, but people don't necessarily understand that, and we have to kind of really talk to them about it. So having resources or getting somebody in there to visit with them about that at a more intent level, and talk about those things that are safer, and talk to the family and have those resources is really important. I talked about the OSHA marking the edges of the steps, but so they see them. So they see them, so they, recall them. I mean, when you're talking with people that are losing cognitive ability, dementia, whether it's dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, muscular dystrophy, we deal with all of those situations. So they're restricted. Their ability to maneuver within their homes is highly restricted. We talk about food items. It affects absolutely things we take for granted. It affects absolutely every aspect of their life. Keeping track of time, keeping track of food, what they eat, and we have systems for doing that as well. Caregivers are responsible for doing that and providing that kind of support and help manage their day-to-day and kind of just look out for them like a family member would when they're not available to do that.
I'll be right out. Okay, bye-bye.
Turning the water heater down to 120 instead of 140. Things like that to keep them safe. Most of them, seniors don't prepare meals. So cooking is not a big issue. They're PB&J, and I mean, they're not eating the appropriate things. A lot are not. And they don't eat on a regular. They eat a couple meals a day. They're conservative. They just don't have as much appetite. They aren't using as much resources. So they're, it's just the way their physiology is now working.
And it takes a lot of energy to put a meal together for them.
Mm-hmm.
That's-
And so we send caregivers in, and they'll prepare a meal, make sure they're eating it, make it appropriate for their physical condition. If they have difficulty swallowing, if they have difficulty with other, item or eating certain foods and so forth, preparing it correctly and appropriately, or finding resources where there's a lot of companies now that provide meals and healthy meals and so forth. So we go into homes and we say, hey, get rid of the TV dinners, and let's start making some meals here and preparing stuff that isn't, high concentrated sodium. So, but it's it's just things you work on, but each situation is unique and individual. I talked a little bit earlier about arranging furniture. That is so vital, because I can't tell you how many times we run into situations when you have a caregiver that's trying to help somebody into a shower, and you've got a 27-inch door on the bathroom, and you can't get, you're trying to get two people to shuffle in there. It's a lot of risk. There's a lot of exposure for falling. So how, maybe, how do we do that? How do we fix that kind of a problem? Take the doors off, and that's another thing. You say, well, on a bathroom, you don't want to take the door off. But the other thing is that they have to, if you're dealing with somebody with dementia, that's a reminder that there's a bathroom there when they see it, the visual connection, right? But so we try and find solutions to that we don't necessarily have answers for. So we have to work around it because they haven't fixed these things in their home. And now they keep putting it off and putting it off. So, if we had a plan that would introduce that and make it more reasonable and show them how they could reduce their risk and so forth, that would be really beneficial for the clients we work with.